Impact, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about innovation. I see some familiar faces here, um, but I also see a lot of new faces. So I think telling a little bit about my backstory will give you a better idea who I am. Might also give you some inspiration about, I see a lot of young designers here as well, maybe how you can pivot your career path. So let's get started. I think a big pivot in my life was 3 years ago. This is a picture that I took at Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, and me moving to Dubai. And I came from Maastricht, a little medieval city in the south of the Netherlands, a little bit over 110,000 people living there. And I worked at the university over there. So a lot of designers here work at agencies, corporate, startups, maybe government, etc. But I don't think maybe most of you are working at an academic setting. This is where I actually started. And I worked specifically, started at the Service Science Factory, focused on service innovation. And I started there as a service designer. But as I was part of the business school, I also was exposed to a lot of other interesting things. So my original background is in architecture. I pivoted to service design. But being part of a business school, I was exposed to how organizations work, how we can redesign that and use design techniques to bring it further. Designing strategies, for instance. So I moved up to higher forms of design. But at the same time, I had the spatial design background. I know about service design. I wanted to complement that also with the digital aspect. So I went all kinds of routes, and maybe that can be also for inspiration for some of you here. And besides working for clients in the B2B, B2C sector, healthcare, retail, etc., I also was involved with a lot of innovation ecosystems. So I also saw the opportunity of triple helix or quadruple helix collaboration between government, business, etc. All right, but 7 year, we all know the 7 year itch. It can be in your relationship, but it can also be in your career. So the 7 year itch was also for me. I was ready for a new ambition. I was ready to move client side and really see how can I drive impact from the inside out. And around that time, I got a little message in my inbox. It was a little bit too good to be true. It was Peter from Aspects, our dear friend, with a great offer. And that was actually the reason why I actually started then also at Majid Al Futtaim as a customer experience and innovation manager. Right? So the guys from Aspects, I'm living proof it was really changed my life, and that's why I'm here. Yes. All right. Enough about me. Let's talk about the topic. Let's talk about innovation. And there's a lot of hype. You know, everybody's talking about innovation, marketing. You know, a lot of things are being put out there. But are we actually living in the age of innovation? That's a question that I want to put with you guys. Right? Because we moved from science fiction, think about this tablet of the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, to science fact, for instance. I mean, we're catching rockets with big metal chopsticks. We're beating Porsches with Cybertrucks. We are in the midst of the generative AI revolution. You know, reinventing how information is produced and consumed. Think about, for instance, also digital currency and assets, but also, especially in Dubai, I think it's a great example how the service economy has evolved massively over the past decades. But also think about yourself, how you are connected with friends, how you are dating, and for instance, also meeting new people, especially in a city like Dubai. That's quite important, like applications as time left. So you might say, yes, there's a lot going on when it comes to innovation. And we're living in the fourth, some say the fifth industrial revolution. A lot of technologies are enabling change. We also see that innovation is being democratized. It's not only the, is it me? Maybe, yeah. So we also see that innovation is being democratized. It's not only the big corporates decades ago that are doing it. It's also you yourself can start now a startup and use the methodologies that are widely available. Learn from all the failures that have come before us. That also means there's a lot of investment. Yeah, as a startup, you can get investment. You don't need to pay for that all yourself. And therefore, you see a lot more projects, initiatives, startups, and etc. But there's also another side that I would like to share with you, because there's a lot of research that also mentioned there's less significant breakthroughs, less fundamental research, etc. There's a lot of hype, all kinds of new things, but is it really, if you peel off the onion, is it really that breakthrough? What we do see is a lot of recombination. Some technology here, a business model there, an insight there, we combine it, and by doing so, we get new things. Also, technology that, for instance, has been invented decades ago, now all of a sudden becomes available because technology has become cheaper, faster, better, etc., etc. And the last thing, there's a lot of innovation theater. I mean, I think it's around 70 to 90% of all innovations fail. So there's also a lot of hype, and we don't tell too much about things that fail. Critique is then also needed. So I'm going to mention some of the innovation gains. I don't want to be all doom and gloom, only negative things. I want to give you guys some perspective. Some of the innovation managers, it will be a little bit more standard practice, but I want to give you an overview of where I personally see a lot of potential. And the first thing that I want to mention is these kind of recombinations. And there are a lot of interesting toolkits, and this toolkit really helped me a lot, because when we talk about innovation, often a lot of people talk about product innovation. And the 10 types of innovation really help to expand that a bit more. If you think about Netflix, it's a part which is focused on experience, for instance, user interface, it's, for instance, channel innovation. But there's also the offering itself is quite unique, the blue part. But also subscriptions was a significant difference compared, for instance, to the competition. And as you can see here, there's a lot of investment in product innovation, but some other types of innovation can actually yield a higher return on investment. So keep that in mind. So these kind of toolkits are handy because they make clear what do we define as innovation, the different types, and the different tactics that you can deploy within it. And this can be those Lego blocks with which you can define your new business model. And by combination, I mentioned that recombination is the biggest driver for innovation at this moment. You can combine multiple, and by doing so, still can create disruptive changes, for instance, in the market, right? And what's interesting is if you combine different types, it also means your competition needs to do more effort, source more different teams to work together in trying to catch up, but then also see how they can move forward. I mean, I can talk about this for hours, but what I also see is in this recommendation game, you're sure you know some of your managers, for instance, they have this great idea and people are just adding ideas to it and it becomes a Frankenstein. So without focus, this recommendation game can also really be a downfall. Cool, so that's the first one. Adding to that, I think also what we've seen the last few years is generative AI. So if you look into the innovation process, along that process, there are multiple elements, multiple phases where generative AI can play an important role. So I love also this overview of the Board of Innovation, where they saw the revolution of design thinking. I think most of you have experienced that. Lean startup combined with agile. Now they say the next step is then also generative AI. So if you look into that innovation cycle, for prototyping, for ideation, for strategizing, for synthetic validation, for a lot of other aspects, you can use tools like that are readily available. But you need to have the basic knowledge of innovation. It's not a magic box where you can just get the best ideas out of it. And we've seen a lot of positive impact. The third one that I think especially here, being part here of the Human Centered Design meetup, is the customer perspective. Because if you look, where could most organizations find unique innovative breakthroughs? I think there's still the opportunity to do so. Most of the companies, there are exceptions, certain sectors, but they don't invent. They only integrate. They integrate the latest technologies, they integrate new business models, etc. But they do not invent on that part. Right? You need to follow the trends, you need to follow the developments, But what you truly should own is that relationship with your customer. I'm preaching to the choir, I understand that as well. But within that, go deeper. Go beyond regular research and find those, we always call that the golden nuggets. I mean, if you go back to IDEO, finding those golden nuggets, I really believe that breakthrough innovation can come that. And if you know what technology is out there, it's much easier to bring those solutions to life. Because I think this is what Roger Martin said from Harvard Business School, it's easier to make a desirable innovation technically feasible and economically viable instead of the other way around. So you, as human-centered designers, you should actually also, find your way within these organizations and convince those key decision makers to invest in this. And lastly, we're going to zoom out, leveraging innovation ecosystems. Because innovation is not distributed equally, because around the globe there are dozens of innovation hotspots where companies can actually benefit from through collaboration, new initiatives, getting knowledge, etc. Right? We think that we live in this open world and everything is available, but there are interesting concentrations around the world. Right? Silicon Valley, we know, Boston, also in the east, and there are a lot of interesting places popping up. We all come from different parts of the world. You probably know that city with that university having their own innovation hub. Maybe that can be an interesting partner, and there are multiple around the world. Right, and these places are unique. They have their own focus, they have their own human and risk capital that is available, their own infrastructure, their own facilities, specialized demand. Innovation is not only about delivery, it can also be that you sell your innovations. We see that, for instance, especially in the startup culture. And of course, what's the culture and the incentives? If you think about Silicon Valley, if you've been there, it's a specific, unique type of environment, which also the culture plays an important role. Right, and if we talk about innovation, it's not only about the innovation capacity, the ICAP, it's also about the entrepreneurial capacity. How do you bring those ideas to the market? How do you build businesses around them? How can you make them skill? So that's more than only innovation. And there's a lot of interesting research where they look at certain areas where, for instance, Korea is quite strong on innovation, where Thailand, for instance, is much stronger on entrepreneurship. So if you, for instance, look into the UAE, they're exceptional when it comes to entrepreneurship. So there's a quite unique setting culture here. With startups, I think we can still grow. And when innovation has a lot of investment, as you can see here, innovation input is high, but the output is still mediocre. But that's to be expected for a young region here that is investing in innovation. And this kind of analysis you can do on a global level, looking to regions, countries, cities, and even neighborhoods. So as an example of Silicon Valley, looking into the history of a place, right? There are a lot of developments over the year that make such a place successful or not, or that is focused on a certain way. We see that in the States. If you go, for instance, to Russia or other places around the world, China has certain cities have certain focus areas because of historic reasons, for instance, right? And you can take different lenses. Where are the strong, entrepreneurial capabilities, for instance? Where am I located? Where should we actually be located? What's also interesting, was mentioned during a course that I followed, is that a lot of corporates have their headquarters situated in certain locations due to historic reasons instead of strategic ones. This is where we first set up shop. But things have changed over certain kind of decades. Where you're now located is not relevant anymore. So also when you're looking to Dubai, think about those free zones, think about those business parks, etc. They all have their own focus. Some of them, really have the characteristics of an innovation ecosystem. Where are you situated? What kind of stakeholders are there? How do we want to engage with them? There are different type of activities actually possible there. And this is, I think, very interesting that a lot of companies should do. And from there also see, should we leverage this or do we want to do everything ourselves? Because there's a lot of focused capabilities, I would say, in these type of areas. All right, so this is the overview. Jonathan, where are you? My man. Good on time? We're good on time?
I'm at the bar.
All right. I think that's a yes. So, the big plot. Okay. So this is just high level. It's just some 4 points that I think show a lot of uh, possibilities. But I'm very curious. What are your perspectives and ideas? You know,
Man, these mics are useless.
he's beatboxing.
I gave, can you hear me? This is terrible. In a football game, for those of you who like football, you give a player a compliment and you're like, wow, he's amazing. And then he's useless the rest of the game. Harry, you know what I'm talking about, right? That's like these microphones and our dear friends who brought our microphones. They're not here, so I can give them a hard time. Anyway, maybe Chris, while I'm talking, can replace the batteries on that on the microphone. Thank you, Chris. Brenton's got a question. You're a partner in crime. I know you work with you. He's probably going to ask you a trick question.
Okay. Return the favor.
Anybody else? Some questions. Sorry, we're going to share the mic for a little while.
Damien, great talk, thank you. You talked a lot about the Frankensteining of ideas. Now, Dubai in the last 6 years couldn't really find value fit for most of the region, so a lot of these ideas came into services, into products, into businesses. Now, this has come from higher management, VIPs, whatever it may be, with all these ideas come together. Now we're at the tipping point, where a lot of these Frankenstein ideas don't actually work anymore, but management wants to keep them in. How do you start that conversation with change management to try and strip back some of those core features which aren't really working, because it's confusing consumers to actually what they do?
I mean, innovation is all about value. So show me the value, show me the money, right? So if people cannot show it, they should be held also accountable for that, right? So I think we need to start measuring, right? It's not only, there's a shiny thing and a nice photo up. No, we really need to also start measuring the impact of that. I think it starts with that. And then it's a whole political, I mean, that depends on the context. But let's first start measuring the impact of innovation. And I think we also should look at innovation not as a project, but you should look at it as a portfolio. There are bound to be things that fail. We need to accept failure. I'm preaching to the choir again, I know. But that you see that culture is not there often. It's often about we need to be successful. I need to show, my worth, and that's the best with a nice picture or a LinkedIn post. Yeah.
I totally agree. I think one of the things, even in like more mature markets like Australia that I'm trying to introduce, is like the Amazon model. If you have 100 things that you explore, maybe 10 you do research on, and only one sees the light of day. But don't just do the 10 research and one sees the light of day. Do the 100 explorations.
Yeah.
And often this isn't a place that's open to that, right?
I mean, I showed the percentage of 7 to 90%. That's a reality. Even if your innovation process is top notch, there's still a big percentage of innovations that fail. Accept that, fail cheap. But this is, I mean, you guys know this.
Any other questions? Yes. You've already asked a bit, but that's okay. I'll leave
Okay. So yeah, thank you so much. So regarding the 70 to 90% that fail, how usually individuals who work in the innovation are evaluated, considering that some of the ideas will just fail? So what are the criteria for evaluating performance of individuals who work in innovation?
You talk about the individuals, or you're talking about the projects?
Individuals.
So like I said, it's I think you need to play the portfolio game. I think that's important, right? So if an innovation manager has a project that fails, that's okay. You need to play the long game. So if you only want to deliver in the next year, it's you put a lot of pressure on an innovation manager, right? But you need to also sometimes put that outside of the business. We talked about if you look into, for instance, the game of exploitation and exploration. Oh yeah. You cannot have that blue mindset of exploitation constantly, breathing down your neck when you are in there in exploration. So there are the different metrics, and it's a long game. And if you don't have that, if you don't get that space or don't get the resources from higher management, well, should you then actually take up this challenge? Yes or no, right? So I think there also, you need to be firm and you need to educate the business if needed.
Nice. Any other questions? Yes, your fellow Dutchman. I hope he's going to be nice. The Orange Army.
Thanks, Damien. There was one slide where you had like, okay, start here, the Venn diagram with viability, feasibility, and desirability. How do you convince your other departments within such a big corporation where you work that actually they should start there? I think everyone in this room knows you want to start with desirability.
Yeah.
How do you convince them or bring your teams along with it?
Well, so in the my current position, but also in my previous one, I mean, there is a lot of research out there, right? HBR articles, but also scientific research, which clearly states, I mean, the facts are out there, right? So you can start there, already showing like, okay, this is just common practice, guys. We've been doing it the wrong way all along. And then, of course, in order to prove it also within the business, you need to start measuring it. Again, coming to my earlier point, you need to measure it there as well. So, yeah, I think, yeah, and sometimes you need to just start with small, right? So just start with a few of those projects that start there. Because what I often see is that if I really dig deeper on who's the customer, what are their needs, a lot of key stakeholders, they cannot answer it. And they should be, I mean, that's the main purpose of a business, right? It's about creating value, it's about delivering value, and it's about capturing value. And if you only, focus on things around it, and I don't think that's the case. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Here in the front, lady.
At the front. Chris, you're pointing at the question.
Hi.
Hey.
I just came here, so 5 days ago. I came from Germany, making a YOLO mode coming here to Dubai. Yeah. So we have the problem, Europe has the high tax all over the world. So yeah, I'm making the YOLO mode coming here to Dubai and exploring the business center of the world. And what's your biggest advice? Because I'm very new here, and I think everyone also, everyone is very curious. What's your biggest advice
All right.
that we can take
What do you mean advice in terms of what?
In-
Are you mean more specific?
in terms of on the risk of all this startup thing? So how we can minimize.
No, so you came from Germany, right?
Yes.
And you went YOLO, let's go to Dubai. But you have an ambition, right? I shared my own ambition. But maybe you can first share a little bit of what's your ambition, what's your hope, and maybe you can tap into that, because otherwise it's a little bit, yeah.
Yes.
So YOLO, what YOLO?
So my biggest ambition in life is to help people connect. So I am working in a recruitment agency as of the moment, having a startup in Germany. So in AI, we wanted to innovate it with AI, so connecting undeveloped countries to developed countries, because Germany right now has a problem with talent, like nurses, IT, and hotel services. So we bring people from Philippines going to Germany, but yeah, that's the thing right now with the taxes.
And you want to expand here in
Yes,
Dubai.
yes.
All right. So I think the previous talk also linked quite nicely to that, right? Germany is not the same as here in Dubai. So I think this sensitivity, in order to be successful here, you need to have that sensitivity. Going back to this model again, who are your customers? Who will your customers be? What are their desires? And you cannot just copy paste the personas that you had in Germany here. So this sensitivity is needed. I don't know if you have the capabilities within your organization to get that sensitivity here, but I'm sure if you ask around, you will find the parties that are definitely able to give you the sensitivity in order to be successful here. Because as I mentioned, it's a very entrepreneurial climate here. So there are a lot of opportunities, but start at the right place.
Great answer. Any final question?